Welcome to the Rook podcast, and in today's episode, I wanted to talk about children and spirituality. Those first 5 years of a child's life, our third eye is open, and if you grow up in an environment where you are safe to be spiritual, and it's not just like taken away from you because of the system and all this other junk going on, right? You get to keep that, you get to preserve that throughout your life. So my third eye has been open. And I am a mom as well. And I'm a mom to adults and I'm a mom to preschoolers. So I'm kind of all over the place with that. But my experiences as a child that I do remember still remain very vivid to me. But being able to spectate my children's supernatural experiences when they're so young and they don't have an understanding of ghosts and spirits and the dead, and they just talk to things, and it's not your imagination. Sometimes it is a child's imagination, but when they are specific about a person and what they look like or certain idiosyncrasies, then obviously that's something to consider. Like, I don't understand how we can just dismiss that. It is really unfortunate that there are parents that are predatory and they will like coach their kids into saying things and, oh, I had a past life and this and that. It's obvious when it's scripted, and it's obvious when it's authentic. You know, I did see a case a long time ago. It's like a little boy, and he was super convinced that he was a World War II fighter pilot. I'm not sure where or what branch, but he knew all of the specs to what a fighter pilot back then knew, like off the top of his head. And the parents were like, this is crazy. So I saw that a long time ago, and it just seemed very genuine because the little boy was like 4 and he was really articulate, and he was able to look at the camera in the eye and just be clear about what he was saying as if he still were, So for those of us who do believe in reincarnation, which I do just simply because of my occult path so far the past few years, really solidified that to me because it just makes sense. It seems like the first few years when a child comes back to this fucking hellhole hood of a planet, they know who they were. I don't have any experiences like that at all, but it's really interesting. Now, in terms of my kids, I have a little one who she loves to play with ghosts and monsters. Like, she is always monster hunting and ghost hunting, and her sister was the same way when she was her age, 17 years prior. It's really interesting. But aside from that, like, they have no fear of the dark. None of my kids have been afraid of the dark. I wasn't afraid of the dark either, which is really cool. But and that can be nature and nurture. But my little one will have, there's a person who passed on my husband's side, and she talks to him. She talks to him, and it's my husband's a triplet, and one of his brothers passed away in early infancy, but she sees him and knows his name, and he was identical to my husband, and says that he looks like daddy. Like, it's that kind of stuff, and spirits, even no matter when they pass away, they can appear any way that they need to, because we are limited here on this plane. We can expand, like, all of our aspects that do exist, like how people perceive us, different styles that we've had through our life, different, just everything. If you're depressed and you're dressed, I've been in situations where I'm like, new mom and kind of depressed, and I'm just disheveled in my fun bun and my no bra and baggy ass shirt and my chanclas in the house and stuff, and that's an aspect of me. And then there's me who like gets their shit together and pulls it, there in a certain sense it's like different uniforms for spirits, and they can change it very easily. Like, we like to dye our hair or cut it and have a fresh change once in a while. So in that case, I thought it was really interesting. In my eldest daughter's case, she saw my father. She was about 4 years old, and at the time, we lived in an apartment back where I grew up, and we were in the upstairs unit. So, and there's no way that anybody could have like climbed up at that point, just how the place was built. There's no way that an adult could have gone through that window. Just how, there was no way. So, anyways, she came out of her playroom, and I was just doing some dishes, like always, fucking still doing that. 20 years later. And she was like, Mom, can you please, there's a man in my room and he's got crazy hair like my brother, and he's just sitting there playing with my toys and I just don't know him. Can you just tell him to leave? And she was just like so solid. Like she was just, my eldest daughter's like the sweetest person in the world. She's holds her own, but she's not like me. She's very kind and like sweet and just all around, right? But when she's just serious, she would turn into like a little mini adult, and she's just like, this is just a bit inconvenient, you know? So I knew that it was supernatural and I could feel it. And when I went into the playroom, there was no presence. I didn't feel anything at that point. But she was like, he was right there. I believed her. She was like, she knew he was gone. So, because I felt no presence at that point, and I had asked her, is he still here? Just to see if it's like her imagination or if he's hiding somewhere. And she was like, no, he's gone. It's those sorts of things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's really interesting. One of my little ones as well, too, was outside, and my husband does workings with the deity Loki, and that's fucking fun to spectate. But we don't talk about our practice like we talk about spirituality and things and shit in the world and all these systems and structures. All four of us that are older in the house, we do. But I don't know. It's just this one thing. Like my daughter, we're outside and playing out in the bush, in the woods, and she was playing hide and seek with Loki, and we were just kind of observing. You know, and I don't want to not paint this picture that I had like a 3-year-old playing in the woods by herself and we're all just sitting by. Like it's not that deep. But she was playing peekaboo, and we were like, well, what are you playing? And she was like, I'm playing with Loki right now. And we were like, okay, and that makes a lot of sense from what I know about that entity and having his presence in the house around, especially I have an autistic child. I sound like I have like a fucking baker's dozen of children. I have 4 kids, but I'm always like, there's a child over here and over here and over here and over here. It's like, fuck, bitch, fucking cross your legs and watch a movie, God. But in all seriousness, I just love having I love observing my kids with their spiritual experiences, but I feel like it's very important not to coach them, not to go, do you see a demon? It's just so stupid, and it discounts everything when people do that. When you try to force supernatural experiences, then just wait. If you do that, wait until one happens, because you're gonna be like, oh shit, like it's not funny when they happen. You know, these sorts of really intense experiences get very confronting, whether it's a demon or it's just some person that won't go after they die in the house they're living in now. You know, it's like that sort of stuff. There's so many complexities, but when you're in those situations, and I've been in those situations my entire life because I've been just surrounded by fucking ghosts and spirits, and so is everybody that came before me, and it's not like a flex. It's just, listen, people who are spiritual, and you can say, oh, I'm an ancestral witch, it doesn't mean anything. It's the same as somebody saying, I come from a fine line of blacksmiths. Like, it's the same shit, okay? Like, witchcraft doesn't mean that I'm special. It just means I had the ability, because of the influences in my environment, to read the energy earlier. I got to learn that skill. So, and it's been aligned with me, and it's been like, it's weird because it hasn't been like a definition of my personality either. It's kind of weird. So anyways, back on topic. I think it sucks when parents do that sort of stuff. It really gets frustrating because, first of all, now you're just treating your children like a novelty and an accessory, and you're treating spirituality like a novelty, and it's like, what is the point besides your ego? Like, you are that fucking useless personality wise that you have to use your kids in order to look good. Like, I don't understand that. So you know, people have asked me too, like, well, what do you do in terms of witchcraft and black magic, and you got kids, and how do you explain that? My 2 eldest are grown, and they are very well versed and very educated, and they're a lot more intelligent than I am, in all honesty. So first of all, that's a fucking plus. And second of all, I've always given them I didn't force anything spiritual when they were children. That was definitely not something that I would have done anyways, but just out of respect for that boundary, my kids just got to be kids, and my two younger kids get to be kids. And, you know, I might have explained, like, you know, certain things about crystals, because obviously I had crystals and incense and things and jars and spices and stuff, you know, and it's like, what is that? And I would just explain that it makes me feel connected with goals that I want to do. And when you're older, if you feel like you want to do that, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. I don't like when parents do that. I think it's kind of weird, but now my daughter does. She practices witchcraft, and she does a lot of planetary magic, and that's pretty heavy stuff for her age, you know. In my opinion, it's not for me, because I was just not ready for that shit at 20. So it's really interesting because everything came full circle. And in terms of occultism, my kids were playing a video game for like 6 months on their free time, right? And I was over here doing this shit in silent for 6 months. And then one day, you know, I talked to my husband, and I'm like, I need to talk to the kids about this. You know, I'm over here like invoking Lucifer, and I gotta do something. My kids go to fucking youth group and shit. You know, a non-denominational, really cool youth group too. So I think that's important. I think it's really indoctrinating to not let your kids be exposed to those sorts of experiences, but educate them. Tell them if anybody tries to make you feel ashamed of yourself or who you are, for, you know, the gender you're attracted to, you know, the basics, then it's not good. At, you know, they were aware of that, and their church was really cool, and didn't agree with a lot of stuff in terms of homophobia and shit, which was great, you know. And I know that can be very like, oh, let's pick and choose, but honestly, that whole thing where a man laying with another man, from my understanding, the direct Hebrew translation was in association to boys, not men. But anyways, it's nice that there are Christians who aren't homophobic, you know? That's really important in my family. So I think that you set your kids up for success by letting them experiment, you know, but warning them. I tell my kids, my beliefs are my own. I fuck up. Do not take what I say as, you know, doctrine or anything. I'm a human being that's very flawed, just like every human being that's wrote any book. And this is really a personal path, and I feel aligned with it, but it's not as fun as you might think, and they understand that. But the gist of that is when I finally talk to them, because I'm a very open book with my kids, in a way that's very responsible and not, you know, oversharing or anything like that. But I sat them down and I talked to them, and I talked to them about, I was a bit nervous, and I was like, Mom's really getting in tune with herself spiritually again this past year, and I really appreciate all the support, and I like candles, and we've always done like money bowls and things like that. And I told them I just wanted to explain some things that feel a bit personal for me, that I don't want to keep a secret for a multitude of reasons. You know, for one, I'm not ashamed of my path at all. I'm very open about it. I'm very proud of just feeling in tune with this whole path for me, because I feel like myself. Like I can finally breathe. Like I was just trapped in a box for years, and I'm like, oh, I finally feel safe enough to just be okay. And two, I think it's important to be honest and open with your kids and not walk around eggshells or have that sort of dynamic in your environment where hush hush, we don't talk about that. Like I don't do that shit at all. If anybody's got a skeleton in their closet and people don't want to talk about it, I'm going to fucking kick that damn door down. No, you know what I'll do? I'm going to do like fucking CQB experts, where they go and they fucking open the door slowly, and then they pan around, and then they just open it so the other person on the other side, they don't know if it's an attack or not. That's what I would fucking do, to be honest, because I don't like that shit at all. When people, I'm just going on a tangent, I'll get back on top. I do not like this whole, oh, we don't talk about, that creepy cousin over there or whatever. I'm not relating nobody's creepy, I'm saying people who do that shit, I'm not ever going to allow that sort of stuff. If somebody got locked up for something, you're going to know why, when you're an appropriate age. If somebody did something to somebody that harmed them, you ain't ever going to go over there, and I will get a fucking megaphone and be like, shh, attention, everybody, this guy's fucking fiddling kids. Like, I will not do that shit. So in terms of spirituality, in terms of everything else, I'm exactly the same way with my children. And now that my children are grown, it's like an adjustment, right, to talk to them. So when I talk to my kids about Lucifer and Lilith, and those were the two, and Azazel, the first three, I would say for the first year of occultism, I talked to them and they were like, we know about all of them. They're like, they talked about it in their game, and there's this, like, I think it's like a Persona game. I play video games, but I haven't in a couple years. I'm too fucking busy and burnt out from the system to play video games right now. But they were like breaking things down, and they did research on their own because they wanted to see like the lore, if it was true, and then they started studying it. They would have told me, yeah, we were being fucking metiche and heard you and did it too. They would have. My kids are cool. They would tell me that. They're so honest, and the way, just a side note, to have that sort of relationship is just to be honest and open about yourself, and when you screw up, just like make it right and do better next time. That's it. I gotta say that. So anyways, I thought that was really interesting, like synchronicities, because at that point they absolutely knew just as much as I did. It was weird, and that made me feel like, gosh, I felt like I didn't know my kids, and that made me feel like, was I not paying attention? They're older, so I don't monitor like stuff my daughter does. She's an adult, I'm just here when they need for that sort of stuff. But I felt kind of bad. I'm like, man, I'm sorry if you guys felt like I didn't even know that, because they usually tell me, and they're like, no, it's cool. We just all been doing our own thing. But they did a bunch of research, and they've been like cross-referencing stuff, and the associations with certain demons, with certain planets, and blah blah blah. Like, it's crazy. And the experiences I was talking about, and the certain aspects I have seen of like Lucifer and Azazel at that point, and I don't know if Lilith was in their game. But they were like, that's so spot on. And then we did some research together, and they want me to play the game. I have a gaming channel that I've abandoned. I don't have the time right now. But eventually, when things are at a momentum, I would love to pop on like once or twice a month and just stream something fun that's like occult related. Or I play Sims. I haven't for a year. It sucks. But I have all that like linked with the other channels on YouTube. So anyways, I thought that was really crazy. So fast forward, we now all talk about this stuff, and I share some of my experiences with them. Not all of them. And it's really interesting because I feel like I need reassurance from them. Like, you guys don't feel too influenced by me, right? Like, you're making, and they're like, no, they just research stuff on their own, and they have their own path, and that's it. Like, I just tell them to ask questions if they feel like they need to, and to definitely be cautious, and before you start summoning a bunch of spirits, to please, they know those foundations. It helped me have a conversation about protection and grounding and stuff, because I might have always done that in our house, and they might not have realized, or they might have just thought it's superstition because everybody they know puts salt or cinnamon in front of their parameter of their house, and just different things, or puts limones with cloves on the windowsill because it absorbs negative energy. There's a lot of things that I just kind of did, and witchcraft is very seen as nonchalant to a lot of people, like superstition or old wives' tales sometimes. So it's like those little things. And when I started to explain to them about reading energy, they understood completely. They're like, no, I see it. Like, they're not compliant. They're my kids. I'm not a compliant person. My kids absolutely aren't going to just be compliant. But it was really cool. So that's an interesting aspect of parenthood that I've gotten to grow with my kids, who are growing with me. Because I've had to explain to them, when you're a parent, you have to grow with your kids as a parent. There's no rule book on how to raise teenagers. It's been really crazy. And, having a young man and a young woman and all these different things, man, I have been like having to keep up, because I got to make sure I can be there for them. So it's really cool to be able to evolve, not only just with your kids as a parent to teenagers, which can be very turbulent for complexity of reasons, as anybody knows who's been a teenager or has had teenagers. But in order to, but the fact that we can bond spiritually, my son does readings. He wanted to do tarot on his own. He's super, like, really good at it too, like way better than I am. Seriously. And my daughter's like all into the stars and the planets, and she can explain, she can just read your chart so quickly. And even though I will fumble with astrology, because like I think all of us know some shit about ourselves and our star charts, absolutely. And numerology, I grew up around all of this sort of stuff. Like I was raised by somebody who's really adept in numerology and taught me what I know. So my daughter picked that up, and it's really cool to see. It's really interesting because it wasn't like this forced thing, it was never indoctrinating. It was never, it's just always just kind of known and understood. And yeah. So now that I have two little ones and my husband is on his spiritual path and he's on his own path working, he's got like really heavy shit that he's dealing with. And it's completely different than occultism for mine, but he's gotten into esoteric research just because me researching and me having a supportive husband who's like, so, what are you into? And then we start watching shit together and looking, he's like, man, all of this makes too much sense. And he's really smart. So our environment is not like this. I don't want to pass judgment on some people, but I'm going to. Some people are so spiritual, they need to fucking just pipe down and walk on earth for a bit again, and they just float around their house all day, and we don't have to take, time is just an illusion. It's like, bitch, we gotta get to work. We still got bills to pay. We still got kids to feed. Time is of the essence, okay? It just sucks that we don't have as much of it as we wish we had. But we can't, and that's cool if people want to live like that. I'm saying I don't live like that. I live, no, but it's balanced out because you have to be practical with this sort of shit. But it's cool if people want to, if that's where they are, but I don't believe in doing that where you have to wake up and eat a fucking wedge of lemon and meditate for 4 years before you start your day. I can't do that shit. I do meditate daily. I do my stretches. I come into I have to have a routine. I have to, because my Aquarius ADHD, not liking to be controlled and not liking structure ass needs it. So I have a pretty, not a strict routine where it's stressful, but I have to, I got to get this done by the end of the day or X amount of hours per week, studying for blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to get it twisted, because some people, I think, get a bit too up into the clouds, and it's like, we're here for a reason. We're supposed to be spiritual. We're supposed to just know what the fuck we are, I think. We're just supposed to understand ourselves energetically and to an extent primitively. And we don't. We're like, it's taken me 2 years to not be afraid as much of bugs because of gardening, because I was such a city slicker. I've always loved plants and bugs and have seen farm animals give birth and things, and I've always been spiritual, but I was like, ugh, I was like, oh fuck no, mosquitoes are coming in. I don't like bugs at all. But now that I've been in tune with the earth so much more, because I get my hands dirty daily, I'm out in my garden almost daily. And then I just water and fuck off some days because, got other things to do. But at least 10 hours a week I'm out there, at least. And because there's days where I just got nothing but gardening to do. It's seasons are changing here. My point is it helps me stay connected with who I am spiritually and as a human being. And not only that, but it's a really positive influence on my kids. And as a parent to adults and to little kids, I feel guilty because I'm like, I wish that I had a garden when you guys were little, but we were going to art museums and doing other cool stuff. And it's like a hard thing when you transition too, because I was 19 when I had my eldest, and then I was 20 something, I was 22, and then in my 30s, fast forward late 30s, you're having babies again. Like, what a freaking idiot. No, but it's wonderful. It really is. And I think I would have struggled if I was already going through empty nest syndrome. And I'm not saying have kids to supplement that. I think I would have just had to deal with it. But I like being a parent. So anyways, I got to get back on track. Fast forward now, I've got my 4 kids, and they're learning about plants because of just me gardening. And you think my son, he's 17. He's really, really cool. He's so level-headed and just cool, man. And you think 17-year-old kid doesn't want to be gardening with their mom. They want to go play video games and go eat some cheeseburgers and go to the mall and go shopping, whatever. And he does all that stuff. But now he's just learned about all the plants. He's like, oh, Mom, what's this plant called over here? Now he's all into it. So it's cool. You just have that influence, right? And because of that, in the spiritual sense, your kids understand nature more. My little ones totally understand and connect with nature more. my little boy that's on the autistic spectrum, sometimes children with autism, from what I've learned as a parent, really transitioning into this, is there can be a bit of a disconnect of, like, not emotions, but an understanding of body language, an understanding of social cues, right? I'm not kidding. Him helping just plant little baby plants and not like pluck all the plants out and throw them, and explaining to him that they need care, he understands those cues so much more. I'm not kidding. I'm not fucking kidding. And it's really hard to be a parent of autism and then be disabled myself. I have fibro. I'm doing all this shit. I'm still disabled. I just don't let it just take over my life. But I got days like today where I'm like, you know, and I just, on those days, I have my goals that I got to get through. But being in contact with the earth definitely will help keep that third eye open 100%. And I sound hippy dippy and crunchy, and I am hippy dippy and crunchy. I love being out in nature, and I love activity, and I love moonlight, and I love sunshine, and I'm all into it now. Before, I loved those things, but I was like, I'm just gonna stay inside for now, you know. But at that point when I had that mentality in adulthood, I also wasn't being very spiritual. I was so engulfed into working and building a career and all the, you know, trying to make myself feel better about myself. And now I feel so free. But connecting, just having if you have limited space, I have a limited space. We do urban homesteading, and I've been doing like more vertical gardening we're getting into this year. Because we have to. That's what we have to do right now, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to wait until I get my dream property to start learning this stuff, but having the kids involved helps them. It helps them connect, and then it helps them too because they like to, my little daughter, baby Luna, her name's Luna, she likes to get certain leaves for plants that I let her, and she wants to put them on the offering thing for all of the deities that we have. Like, I have like a shelf with candles, and I put, like, for Hecate, I like to press flowers and dry them and put him near her candle, and I just do little things and give gifts, and they do that. My son was playing with just a cosplay pocket watch that I had from something. It's not a real pocket watch. I would love one. But he put it on Belial's altar. And I thought that was really particular. Because I let him play with it. He really loves numbers. So he loves this pocket watch. I gave it to him to play with. And then he just puts it like right on Belial's altar every time. Like right on his little dish, or lays it. It's really interesting. So, like those little things, like they connect that, because my little one will do that too with certain plants. Like get a leaf and just put it, you know, for the goddess. And she doesn't say like the goddess or Hecate or anything, but she wants to give presents, and she wants to give prezzies to all the ghosts and her ghost friends. And then she tells me too, she's 3 years old. She was a bit fussy the other day, and I was winding her down for a nap, and she was like, I'm gonna go play with my ghost friends now, good night. And I was like, okay, that's totally normal. And she's just nonchalant about it. But my daughter, my eldest, was the same way. When she was little, she would take her brother into the bathroom and make him, not like in a mean way, but like let's go ghost hunting. And my son's all freaking out, like, fuck this, you know. And she's like, what's the problem? Like, let's ghost hunt. So it's just like this instinct too that just stays open. I had that too. And like I said, this isn't influence. I'm not one of those moms that's like, you're gonna be like me, and you're gonna dress rock and roll, and you're gonna do, like, I don't subscribe to that. My kids are individuals. They're not accessories, you know? So it's easier to say that than prove it. I know I can't prove that, but I'm sorry, I just have this chip on my shoulder. I really do, with parents that start, my candle went out, that they start just using their kids for clout and for attention, for spiritual validation. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you if you're doing that shit? So if my kids weren't into all this stuff, that'd be totally cool. This is what I told them too, because I'm like a good mom and all this shit, but I'm like, look, I ain't changing for nobody. So if you bring home some preacher boy, he's gonna have to fucking deal, and that's gonna be it. And if you have kids and I have grandkids one day, which I don't care if any of my kids do or not, I am not going to push my beliefs onto them and respect boundaries, but that's it. There ain't going to be no beef, but I ain't changing for anybody but me. So, and they understand that. Like, they're like, no, what's cool? They probably wouldn't bring home a preacher boy anyways. I don't know. Maybe they would. I don't care. But that's all you can do is just set a boundary and be honest, and then also respect how children or, adolescents in your environment feel, maybe. Because I think that's important too. Like I said, I just kind of lucked out. I felt weird about it. Like when my kids were really getting into stuff too, I felt like, oh gosh, what if they, think that I'm just trying to force this on them? Because I am just so against that. I've seen it. I've never had to experience that myself. I really haven't. So I don't have this like, fucking vindication, that I have to go and seek vengeance on people because of my, like, it's literally nothing like that. I've just seen it externally, and I see the mental blockages and the like torture people go through with like religious oppression, like seriously. It super sucks. I've seen, I went to a fundamentalist Baptist school. I've explained this recently. And even though I wasn't in that system, I was just there to shut me up and keep me out of trouble. Fair enough. I've seen kids really break down, and I've seen what happens when they get out of that shit too. They become really, really stupid with their vices. Those are the types of people that are the most dangerous, or the ones that like break free from complete like isolation from reality and not given an opportunity to fail. They're the ones that end up like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of heroin. I've seen that shit. And it's like, what are you doing? You got to be street smart here. You can't just be doing whatever you want because you're finally free from your daddy's fucking shackles. Like, that's crazy to me. And it's in one sense, it's not their fault, but we crave expansion. It's kind of a parallel to all of this, like, angels have fell and God overreacted, the false God overreacted sort of ordeal. Because that's what we needed. It was bound to happen if we're going to see it metaphorically, if you will. I have my beliefs, you have yours. But, and my beliefs are constantly being confronted by myself and evolving. Not constantly, but you know what I mean. I think that it's important to give kids a complete freedom to do what they want spiritually, but give them some fucking like ground advice on being taken advantage of and power dynamics and the abuse of power dynamics that people in leadertorial or I would say leadertorial, like authoritative positions within the church or within any spectrum of anything, will use that to your advantage, especially if you're really nice. If you're a nice person, you're a nice, pretty young girl, oh man, you're going to get eaten alive. So you have to teach your children that sort of fortitude, because there is spiritual warfare. There is predatory people. There are people that will give you the evil eye, and it is energetic exchange. It's people throwing energy toward you that you don't want. So even though I've always protected my kids and told them my beliefs, now it's like, because it feels so obvious, like those of us who are practitioners of magic or believe and maybe hire a witch for, those sorts of services or spells or charms, whatever, what you not, like, that it's such second nature that it's real. And that's fine if I'm in my own delusion. I'm just playing fucking dress up. Like, and there's no point in this world. What do you want me to do? What do I owe the world? I don't owe the world anything. So if I want to sit here and I want to play with sticks and rocks all day, that's my prerogative. And I am going to talk about it as it's open and real. Not because I want to indoctrinate people, but because it's been something that's been a part of my life my entire fucking life. And I see it and I read it and I can taste it. So not really. I know people can taste sound and things like that, like energy. But I forgot the term for that. Damn, that's going to bother me until I go and Google it after this is over. But I just wanted my kids to have the freedom that I did. Because I just, grew up around magic, but also just Catholic, and everybody, like Catholic when you need to ask for forgiveness sort of thing. It's fine. It's like, it's not a big deal, but it was not I had no restraints in that area. And I don't know why, but I've always been thankful for that. So I think it was like a sense of when you're younger, you hyper focus on all the bad shit people do. But then you see those good things, and then you see what other people have to go through, and you're like, man, I do got it made in that area. Fuck, man. So when, in terms of having like a heavy practice, like occultism and just researching on that, it can be confronting in its own way, especially demonology, because I don't want to affect my kids. Even making content, I had to really talk to my family to ask them how they felt, because I think that's important. I think that the things that I do and talk about could have consequences to people in my environment. You know, I'm a demonologist. I practice witchcraft. I believe in summoning spirits and communicating with the dead and doing all of these things and rituals. I don't want that to affect them, but my family is so supportive, so it just worked out, and I'm being completely clear about that. So if I were to give any advice to conclude this episode, I would say to just give your kids freedom spiritually, but don't force it onto them. Don't tell them that this, you have to do this. You know what I do with my two younger ones now, because I am in a situation where, my husband and I have similar beliefs and complete encouragement and support of each other. I know I talk about that a lot. It's so awesome to have a person like that. In general, whether it's a friend and not that I never had support in my life, like I've had a lot of support, but it's just, I have complete freedom to be myself without judgment. That's my thing. And not, that doesn't mean that when I've been toxic or stupid that I'm not called the fuck out and checked. Like, I gotta be put in check at times for sure. But in terms of just being myself and being my spirit is just so like screaming, like, finally, oh gosh, and raising my two younger ones now, I just let them tell me what it means, whether it's just them being imaginative or not. Like my little girl, my Luna, she likes I have an amethyst cluster in my bedroom for obvious reasons, and she likes to tell me what it does. And she says it helps her with sweet dreams, and she tells me it's pretty and it makes her happy in her own little voice. And that's good enough, And she likes for me to kiss the crystals. So she always tells me to kiss the crystals. So I'm always like kissing crystals. And I'm sure there's like an energy to that, because now that I think about it, I get it. But I don't want my kids to feel the way about my practice as other people in religious, structures that are very limited in my opinion. I don't want them to have the same reflex, like, oh wow, this is just very awkward and taboo. I'm not going to their sporting events or anything with inverted crosses, and catching, fucking a priest on fire and be like, oh, I'm not doing any of that. I'm a damn decent human being for the most part. And I just, tell them there's a time and a place for shit, and just present yourself in a manner that you would want people to, command that respect in the environment, not because you need it, but because you're showing up. You just show people you show up for yourself and have that confidence. So, and when they're little, just ask them what they feel and just make it about the plants and the crystals. I don't like to tell people what to do with their own kids, but I see a lot of that stuff where you're like, oh, this is this little fucking water, it's moon water, and it's like, you can't be doing that. That's the same thing. Let the kids be free. Let them tell you what it means. My kids tell me what the fucking moon means. My little ones do, and I don't have to ask them. I don't have to sit there and force it. They'll just one day. This is one thing I'll conclude with. This is the thing with kids and spirituality, right? Kids are a lot more intelligent than we are, but we have stupefied them in society because we had to break their spirit in order to keep them in a fucking box for 13 years and have them take tests so they can get out and get into debt and take more tests. That's what we've done. So when you eliminate that sort of paradigm, and I did with my two eldest, and I am super happy I did. I am very happy that I kept them out of that shit, because they're doing great. They really are. And they've got their own issues, But I really, really believe that parents need to just let kids chill. Make it about the plants. Make it about the crystals. Make it about the moon and the sun. Not about the aspects that they represent or all of these complicated things. Kids will tell you what you need to know. And you don't need to ask questions. That's my experience. I did ask one question, though, because my daughter had heard us talking about third eye work. My husband and I, we were putting her down for night time, and we always, bedroom talk and chit-chatting. And she was talking about your spirit eye. And I asked her, I was like, Lily, where's your spirit eye at? And she was like, in my head, silly. Like she knew. And that was the only question that I asked because the topic was happening. But kids will teach you what you need to know, and you don't even need to ask them questions. But I'm going to conclude with that. I've had a phenomenal experience as a mom and as a practitioner of witchcraft for the past 2 decades, because I've gotten to really understand spirituality so much more because of children. Like, I really have. Not just because of my experiences, but because of seeing how children really do interact with the supernatural. It's like people. Like, my little ones they'll be running around with ghosts and stuff or whatever they're doing. And sometimes it's imaginative. My daughter pretends to be chasing ghosts. Sometimes she's not. And it's rare when she's not, compared to being playful and just a child, playing, But when she's not, her demeanor completely changes. It's happened with all of my kids at certain aspects, especially my girls. But they will straight-faced change the cadence in their voice and clearly tell you what you need to know in one short, brief sentence, and then resume being like beautiful, amazing, just little bubbles of happiness. Like they just give so much happiness. So we have to give back to them. The kids don't owe us anything. My kids don't owe me anything. Like my 2 eldest help. They're with the little ones right now, so I can do this. And I tell them they don't owe me. If they start getting too fussy, whatever, I stop what I'm doing. That's my job. I owe them. So we have to give that back to them. Give that to your kids at least. Be happy, and don't take their happiness though, because I can have the worst day. I can be so in my own head and just really struggling, because I struggle. I have PMDD as well. I struggle severely sometimes with depression, and it comes and it goes, and then I feel better for most of the month. And I'm serious. I'm not trying to make excuses. It's really fucking hard. PMDD can be very detrimental for certain people, if you have like suicidal tendencies and stuff like that. So, but there are times where I just keep to myself. I go through the day and I soldier on, and then when my husband comes home, he knows that I'm struggling and he takes over, and I could be having the worst catastrophic mental day, and my little ones will come up and just giggle, not at me, which they should, but they'll just start laughing at something silly, like make a little puppet or something that we do and they want to engage, and it just like in that moment can take it away a lot of the time. And you should give back and be grateful. I allow the happiness to heal me in that moment, but I give it back, because we can't be taking from our kids. Because I can't be the type of parent, I know what it's like I've had postpartum depression, and I've been suicidal on Christmas with postpartum psychosis and postpartum depression, just wanting to just get through the day and not have those thoughts, and your child's first Christmas. I've been there. It's dark. So I allow myself to feel happy, but I give so much gratitude back. And the best gift that I can give to my kids is letting them just be themselves, spiritually free, and let them teach you when they're ready to teach you. So I'm going to conclude with that. And thank you for tuning into this episode. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, and do all that super duper stuff. And I will see you in a couple of days. Bye, Moon Muffins.